Yo, I am back after my week sabbatical grinding Destiny 2 until my eyes bleed, and we're back with a banger. It's the final tournament of this Counter-Strike season, the final mark on the calendar before we enter the player break, the last chance to make moves in the top 10, make a move of being the best team in the world, secure some last-minute trophy placements. All of it is on the line at the Blast Spring Finals, and today we began the festivities with the first round of group stage play. We're going to be going over all the matches played today, what happened, what you can look forward to, the storylines currently going on. So make sure you sit down, relax, and get ready for the recap. But before we get started, make sure you guys take a second, leave a like, leave a comment down below, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It helps out immensely in the YouTube algorithm, and many of you who watch these videos are not subscribed, so do it. While you are down there, consider becoming a channel member. For $5 a month. You can support me directly in what we do here, gain access to regular uploads the night before anyone else, as well as a shout out at the end of every video. And lastly, check me out on Twitch, twitch.tv/LionHeartZ1337. I stream Sunday through Friday, 8:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, playing a lot of Counter-Strike, sometimes playing some Destiny. Come check me out, let's have fun, and let's get started with the recap. Alright, just so we know the lay of the land here, this is the spring finals for Blast, which means that we had the groups a little while ago, so now we're down to 8 teams. We were in 2 groups of 4, and today is the opening best of 3 series to see who would advance to the upper bracket finals and who is going down to the lower bracket elimination game. Tomorrow we will eliminate our first team and set up our playoff bracket for the weekend. So today is all about defining whether you're going to guarantee make the playoffs by winning the series or have to fight for your life tomorrow. With that in mind, we open up the festivities with Faze Clan taking on SAW. And going into this matchup, SAW find themselves in a really interesting position. If you look at the HLTV top 20, they're actually not ranked within it. They fall ranked 28th in the world ladder right now. And looking at the top 20 in HLTV, I actually would think this team could comfortably sit within it. I think they're better than some of these teams towards the bottom. The big thing is, like, since the major, they've had a major slip in performance. As coming up in the build-up to the major at Copenhagen, they were actually on a bit of a heater. They were winning really well. They were taking some great hits off of big teams like the former Cloud9 roster. And going through the qualifier into the major, they looked really good up to a certain point and then crashed out of the major hardcore. And since then, it's been very inconsistent and downhill for this team. So when I take all of those factors into consideration, I really didn't expect SAW to actually put up much of a fight against Faze at all. Faze have definitely had their own inconsistencies in these last few tournaments, but they're still at worst the second best team in the world. Kerrigan is very comfortable at just getting past teams much below his level, especially against worse in-game leaders is where he tends to shine. So when we open up the first game of the day here on Ancient and SAW managed to push Faze to a double overtime thriller, I think most everyone is genuinely shocked at that outcome. And SAW really pushed the game that deep by having such a dominant opening T side. They would go up 10-2 early, running off an incredibly dominant streak of rounds on the Faze clan, and what it really boiled down to was a classic sloppy, slow Faze opener, where their CT side was incredibly unorganized, no real effort at good trading, the team flashing was poor, it felt like a lot of individuals trying to take space at bad moments. Meanwhile, SAW were running relatively simple strats that just weren't being punished. A lot of these rounds were SAW open up into mid control, getting 2 early picks off Faze aggression, and then being able to wait out the rounds and slowly pick out the remaining players for map control. SAW by no means were reinventing the wheel here on Ancient. They were waiting, taking good map control towards the caves in mid, and then pressuring whatever bomb site opened up in front of them, and Faze really just capitulated too much map control early on. But in classic Faze fashion, we go to the second half, they take a minute, they rally together, realize, hey boys, we're Faze clan, probably should be letting SAW do this to us, and then we get a complete flip around in the second half. Faze, they dominate their own 10-2 half and push it to overtime. Consequently, as bad and uncoordinated Faze were on the CT side was as well as they played together on the T side. They were running over SAW in the same fashion they were getting run over. Neither team knew how to defend the CT side whatsoever, and that pushes us to an early overtime. For Faze Clan, once the formula got going, it's been the formula that's made them one of the best teams in the world this entire year. It's Brokey and Frozen with unmatched aggression as a duo, it's Rops in the background as a lurk, just absolutely feasting on the T side, and finally it's Kerrigan and Rain working around the margins with great mid-round calls to exploit any holes in the defense. For SAW, this was the first time I've gotten to watch them in a while, and this is a lot of what I remember seeing from the last time I got to see them play. It's Ujerks and Arados being very good as a 2-man star duo. Despite being bottom of the scoreboard, Mutiris had a couple great T-side rounds taking mid-control with his teammates. Other than that, it just kind of wasn't enough, and the CT side lacked the ability to get the trades and lock down the bomb sites, and allowed Faze to run up too many rounds, and once you get to overtime, it's just that savvy veteran Faze presence They're able to absorb any big rounds that Saw might throw at them, and just last long enough for Saw to make too many mistakes and let Faze capture a map 1 victory, which means we are moving on to Inferno, where Faze promptly runs Saw over 13-5. Saw had at no point any chance in this game. Saw won the pistol round and got 3 of the first 4 rounds, but as soon as Faze established some economy and got their T-side rolling, they ran them over and out of the server. There was just simply nothing Saw could do to stop the stifling attacks of Faze clan. Rops once again leading the server with 22 kills, just absolutely eating them alive on the margins. Meanwhile, you have everyone else on Faze willing to entry at any time, blow up the bomb sites, molly out the corners. There's just nothing Saw could do. They're out-fragged, they're out-stratted. It's just simply too good quality of a team to compete with what they have to offer, and that means they're going to lose this series 2-0 and drop down to the lower bracket. Meanwhile, Faze safely advanced to the upper bracket final, so even if they lose tomorrow, they are guaranteed a spot in the playoffs no matter what, which is why winning is so important in this format. Moving on to our next series, we had NAVI taking on Astralis. This is definitely one of the most interesting series we got to see play out today because both of these teams are in interesting spots. Astralis in this post-Blame F era have had at spots looked really good, but have yet to make more than a semifinals berth. They tend to fall apart in the playoffs and not be able to go that deep, but in the build-up, they look like one of the better teams in the world, surprisingly good for Device's first time as an in-game leader. On the other side, we have NAVI, who obviously shocked the world by winning the major, but have been unable to reproduce since then, leading to a lot of question marks. They are one of the biggest teams in the world in terms of what's next, especially going into the player break. And what that leads to, in my opinion, is both of these teams standing to gain the most with a big finish here at Blast Spring Finals to round out the season. If they can strike big, make a deep playoff run, that could do a lot to assuage the question marks as they approach any potential changes that are going to come during the offseason. But we'll save that speculation for another time. We have the series in front of us. We open up on Nuke, a classic map for both of these teams to play against each other. Alexi B being one of the best nuke strat callers in the world, so I was curious to see how Astralis played around this, because despite NAVI being on a worse run of form, I think on Nuke specifically, they are the better team than Astralis, and it turns out that's what we saw play out. You see, this opening map came down to a tale of T-sides. This is one of those rare cases that's been happening on this current version of Nuke, where neither CT team felt equipped to handle the balance of the outside assault versus the inside push versus the ramp play into lower. Both of these teams on the T side were masterful at working map control and keeping the CT stretched thin, whether it be smoke walls moving to secret, using the smoke walls to move into mini, fast pushes into A, or huge plays into ramp to move into lower. Both teams were keeping the CTs as honest as humanly possible and playing around the fringes to abuse picks and take map control, really showing all of the great aspects of Nuke as a tactical map right now. Both teams had to dig deep into their playbooks to be able to execute the T-sides as effectively as they did. Astralis opened up their T-side effort with an 8-4 half, looking absolutely dominant in most of their takes, only really losing in clutch situations for the few rounds they gave over to NAVI, and going into the CT defense up that much, you would expect Astralis to be firmly in control and looking to take that 1-0 series lead. However, Astralis would win the pistol round and then crucially throw it away on the second round anti-eco defense, where NAVI would work outside, find some miracle picks with the Deegs, and Astralis would have a communication disaster class where I feel like no one knew what they were doing. They were giving far too many 1v1s, and they passed all of those very expensive CT guns right into the willing hands of the terrorists, where NAVI took them and used them exactly how you should be, which is winning rounds. After NAVI got this anti-eco win, something seemed to lock in for them. Their T-side just got a lot more efficient. Suddenly Bit and Emma, of all players, were taking control at will. They were the ones carrying NAVI through this match, not Jail and Wonderful, though they did find impact. Combine that with the great strat calling behind Alexi B, and for whatever reason, NAVI went from looking dazed and confused to running over the second half, winning 9 out of 12 rounds and absolutely stealing this map right out from Astralis' feet when they were in excellent position to win it. Despite really getting everything you wanted from Astralis here in terms of production, with Device, Down, and Yabby all performing, it just wasn't enough, and sloppy CT side communication allowed too much room for NAVI to work, which gives them the early series lead going into the yet untested Dust 2. Now, Dust 2 is still definitely settling into the meta, so I feel like it's very chaotic right now, but what really stood out here and in this series was that Bit was on a masterclass on both maps, and he really carried NAVI to victory today. On Dust 2, he would have 24 kills, 14 deaths, a 1.69 rating, and 111 ADR, and he would power them to a 13-9 victory that I think is far more convincing than the scoreline tells it, because outside of an early 4-round run off of their CT side pistol round win, Astralis looked sloppy pretty much the rest of the game, and NAVI did not let go once they got in control once again. For NAVI, Bit carried the first half and kept their T-side looking strong, and once they got to the CT side defense, JL came online for the first time in the series and really helped to lock down their defense and prevent Astralis from taking map control. On the Astralis side, this is one of those games where I think their T-side strat book simply did not look deep enough. Maybe it's not enough familiarity with the map, but there were multiple bad pushes long into heavy utility that yielded nothing, not enough good mid-round calls, and all in all, the team looked very sloppy and unsure on the Dust 2 T-side, and that let NAVI lock down, hold big 3-man presences on A without being punished on B, and overall just absolutely shut down the map so Astralis could get nothing going, which led to a great 2-0 series victory for NAVI, a safe advancement to the upper bracket finals, while Astralis have to worry about elimination tomorrow. A big win for NAVI considering their recent form. Speeding along to our next matchup, we had Vitality taking on Virtus Pro, and oh god, guys. I think we need to start talking about Vitality and ZywOo possibly being a bit of a choker. Because going into this, considering Virtus Pro are still trying to bet in electronics, still trying to find their identity with James as in-game leader, and really struggling to do so, might I add, this should be a more than winnable series for Vitality. They finally looked like they were starting to get things under control. They've made great finals runs in their previous tournaments. ZywOo really started to come online, but a big through line despite those recent appearances is ZywOo going missing in big games, especially elimination games, and that happened again here. ZywOo looks great to open up the first 2 maps on Inferno and Dust 2. He's top fragging the way for Vitality, looking strong, looking in control. The exact form you would expect from somebody who should be vying to be the best player in the world. They slapped Virtus Pro on the opening map Inferno. It's 13-5, it's not close. VP sitting there on their ass after getting hit in the mouth, finally realizing that this is what it's like to get hit by the Virtus Plow. And then we move on to Dust 2. This is the French Vitality on Dust 2. Apex lives on Dust 2. There is no reason that they should not be winning on Dust 2. They should be a confident team on Dust 2. How many times am I going to say Dust 2? I don't know why and how Virtus Pro managed to win over Vitality on Dust 2. And despite that, you had another great performance by ZywOo. He's keeping them in the game. He has 25 kills. He is leading the way. He's nearly the best in the server. But down the stretch, they absolutely folded on their CT side. They concede 8 straight rounds to Virtus Pro's T side. Virtus Pro's very inconsistent, very unsure T side. That is unacceptable. And then we move to Anubis, and it's a very winnable game. It's a 10-13 loss for Vitality. Virtus Pro takes the series, and you look at it, you look at that scoreline, and then you scroll down to the individual stats and realize that ZywOo was basically a non-factor in this game. He's a negative scoreline, a sub 1.0 rating, very low impact, especially down the stretch, and Vitality still nearly won. So if ZywOo is even 10%, 20% better than what he showed in that final game, they're beating this team. They're winning the series 2-1, and we're not even really worried about it. We're just kind of counting it as a one-map ill performance amongst a great series from ZywOo. And when you look at the total series stats, they're going to lie to you a little bit because ZywOo's the top fragger for Vitality. You're going to see that and think, oh, well, he had a good series, but VP were better. But make no mistake, I put the loss directly onto him because his supporting pieces were there in the final map, and he's the one who went quiet when they needed it most. This is something I want to save for a different video for a different day, but when I see ZywOo right now, what I see is shades of the device of old, of the early TSM device. The device who's definitely one of the best players in the world, but when it came down to the biggest games, he would go missing. I think ZywOo has a bit of the choke artist in him right now. He doesn't show up in big games, in big finals or elimination games, and that is holding this team back from winning trophies. Vitality should be one of the best teams in the world, and when they are not in top form, ZywOo was the one you point the finger at because he needs to be the guy. He needs to be the number one. For Virtus Pro, because I've mostly ignored them here, focusing mainly on Vitality, I think they showed a lot of good and a lot of bad. I think they're still struggling to find an identity, especially on the CT sides. I think they're still far too quick to save and concede rounds to T sides instead of going for some of these 3v4s, low main situations where they could potentially win the retake. They're way too quick to give up on it, and I put that squarely on James' shoulders because he is so quick to save himself, and those rounds I think cost them. On Inferno, there were saves called where they didn't even get the save off because they're too close looking for exits, and then they lost the guns anyway. So why not just go for the retake at that point? And on the T side, I still don't think they found a great system for using electronic to its full purpose. I think we saw glimpses of that on Dust 2, where electronic was that spear, the tip of the attack that you want him to be, Jame in the back, feasting on the op kills as secondary. That's what Virtus Pro can be, but I think the offseason will be most beneficial to them to rework their identity. Jame needs to either come off the in-game leadership role or learn how to call a new style, because right now, Virtus Pro is a tale of two teams, and right now they are split both ways and need to pick a lane and stick to it, and I think it should be Electronic's way, not Jame's way. For our last series of the day, we had Spirit taking on G2, and frankly, this was a meme series. This is a series that shouldn't be taken seriously at all. G2 are playing yet again with a stand-in because m0NESY had visa issues, I believe, and instead of picking up a, semi-retired but still kind of active pro in Stewie, we have 38-year-old TAZ, their coach, coming off the bench to take up m0NESY's slot. The best player in the world. Yeah, I'm sure nothing could go wrong with that. In all seriousness, I think they're making the best of a bad situation. Maybe m0NESY is able to show up before they get eliminated, but obviously playing down a man with your coach to step in, and also having Hooksy back, who's not exactly the most positive fragger in the world himself, sets up G2 for a disaster. Now, despite all that, they won the first map on Ancient, which I don't really know how to make anything of that, because Spirit should not have lost a game to this G2 ever, but yet they not only won on Ancient, they kind of dominated, and frankly, Spirit's T-side on Ancient was just awful. I don't know how to quantify that, because they looked scared playing into this G2 team, which is really weird, because you have Donk, who's basically the second coming to Jesus, and you have TAZ, who's nearly 40. This should not be that hard to math out that you should be running over this G2 team every single day, but on Ancient, you had Nico in godlike form just looking like an absolute G, and then just, again, the calling from Spirit, it was just bad. Donk has 19 kills, a 1.3 rating, he gets his, but everyone else on Spirit just looks scared. And so they drop him out to G2, which, I don't know what to say, is unforgivable. Thankfully, on the other two maps, Dust 2 and Anubis, it's 13-7, it's 13-4, it's Shiro, it's Donk, they're in full control. Unfortunately, TAZ, despite having some cool rounds and some cool moments, is not going to make up the gap that m0NESY has left behind, and that means they are totally outfragged. Even if the strat calling was kind of interesting, it's just not going to be enough, and especially when you pull up to Dust 2 and Nico is your worst player. Nico, your worst player in the server. Well, TAZ is right there. It's just not going to work, guys. And then, we pull up to Anubis, it's 13-4. Spirit run them over. It just doesn't look pretty the entire way. And yeah, I mean, what are you going to do? G2 are playing with a massive hole in them. Spirit should have had this 2-0 to begin with. They dominate the other two maps like they should, which means they win. G2 drops to the lower brackets, and we must wait for tomorrow for more stunning action. And with that, we are done. So I will see you guys tomorrow with another set of recaps. Let me know how you're feeling with the first day behind us. Who do you guys think is going to be taking the crown? My money is on Spirit striking out and winning a tournament before the season ends, but we'll see how that plays out. Other than that, my name is LionHeartZ. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you soon with another one. Thanks to my channel members, Furley, Justin, Jesse, and Bubblesj. Thank you guys for keeping the lights on. If you want to become a channel member, check me out in the link down below. Check me out on Twitch, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. I'm going to bed. This video took longer than I wanted to because I was busy today. Peace.